So it's time for my March reading wrap up. I had quite a good reading month in March. I read 13 books. 8 of those books were physical books and 5 of them were on my Kindle. Because it was such quite a large amount, I have everything typed up so that I don't forget anything and what I gave, what stars I gave them and everything. So if I'm looking down at any point, that's why, just to make sure that I'm telling you everything right. So some of these will be in the right order that I read them. Some of them won't be. So as always, I'll start with the physical books that I read. The first one I read was The Gilded Fan by Christina Courtenay. I absolutely loved this. It was a 5 out of 5 star read. It's about a woman called Midori, and she's grown up in Japan. She's had quite a hard childhood because she's of mixed heritage. Her mother was English and her father was a Japanese warlord who fell in love and sort of went against the grain by being together and getting married. So she didn't fit in Japan, and she's being forced to leave Japan because the ruler of Japan is basically persecuting foreigners and Christians, and even though she's not a Christian, they won't believe that she's not, so she has to escape to England to go find her mother's family, and she falls in love with the captain on the ship. It was a really, really great read. I loved reading the clash of cultures. I'd never really read a book about Japan or Japanese culture, and even though this focused kind of more on the clash of the cultures and her fitting in England, there was still a lot of sort of Japanese traditions in it, and I loved it, and it was an absolutely amazing read. Highly recommend this for historical fans. It was fantastic and I loved it so much. And I was definitely intrigued by Midori's parents' story that I wanted to read the Scarlet Kimono straight away. So I also read the Scarlet Kimono this month. This was a 4.5 out of 5 star read because I did still love it, but I just felt it took a lot longer to get going. I mean, the two protagonists don't even meet until 120 pages in, so that sort of took a while to kick in, but their romance was so sweet. I was so glad that I got to see Midori's parents' story. Absolutely loved this one as well. I highly recommend both of them. I loved that this one was set completely in Japan, really. So you got to see a lot more of Japan and the cultures, and it was fantastic. Absolutely loved this as well. I hadn't really read any books about Japan before, but now I'm definitely looking out for more because I loved it so much. I also read Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This for me took a long time to get into, much longer than the other two books. I just found myself like not flowing very well, like me having to like force myself to pick it up and read it. It just seemed to go much slower. Like the last 100 pages were really, really awesome and I loved it, and it was sort of back to what I liked in the first two books, but it just seemed a lot slower. But obviously I still really, really enjoyed it. I still gave it 4.5 out of 5. My favourite out of the 3 I've read so far is The Chamber of Secrets, and I'm hoping to move on to book 4 soon. Then my friend lent me 2 books in March, and I read both of them. She lent me The Boy Who Sneaks in My Bedroom Window by Kirsty Mosley, and this is a new adult novel. It's one I've seen on Amazon before and thought it sounds good, but just have never picked it up. Just checking. Yeah, I did give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was kind of like one of the first like new adult novels. It was a new adult novel before the new adult genre really exploded. And I did really, really enjoy this. It's about a girl called Amber, and her and her brother have a really abusive father, and one night when she's really young, she's in bed crying, and their next door neighbour Liam sees her crying, and he basically crawls in her bedroom window and stays with her, and then this just becomes a habit, and they have just carried on doing it over the years. And it's basically from their moving to, they're not even really friends, but moving into a relationship, but it turns out, he's always loved her, but it takes a while for her to see him as something else. And it was incredibly sweet. I loved the whole premise of it, but there was a few issues with the writing. Was kind of repetitive. There was a lot of grammar errors and editing errors, but the actual story itself was very sound, and I got through it in 24 hours. I really did enjoy it, so I gave it 4.5 out of 5. And the other book that she lent me was Going Too Far by Jennifer Eccles. This is my first Jennifer Eccles read, and I have to say I didn't really like it. It got half marks for me. I had a lot of issues with it, even from the outset. For example, the main character, whose name I can't even remember, there we go, Meg, she mistakes a 19-year-old guy. She thinks at first that he's a 40-year-old married cop that must have 10 kids. Now, how can anyone mistake a 19-year-old for a 40-year-old? So that was just too unbelievable for me. In the very beginning, I was like, this is just ridiculous. So then I found it very hard to relate to Meg. I found it very hard to most of these characters, I found them very unredeemable. And Meg has her hair dyed bright blue, and she has all these issues with her parents, and when she was younger she had leukemia, and she's sort of never really gotten over the trauma of it, and so she's dyed her hair, always dyed her hair, and then at the end she suddenly dyes her hair back to her natural colour, and everything seems to work out. She suddenly gets makes up with her parents, her relationship with John works out, all because she seems to dye her hair her natural colour. And I was just that is the most ridiculous thing. Dyeing your hair would fix nothing, and I was just this is crap. So yeah, I didn't buy into that at all. I then also read Out of Sight, Out of Mind by Yvonne Wareham. This was okay. It took a long time to get going. When the protagonists meet, it was really interesting. Jay has amnesia, he can't remember, and Madison is a scientist with the ability to read minds, so she finds him really intriguing. But then after their initial meeting, the experiment of trying to find out who he is drags on for far too long, that I was finding myself getting really bored. I didn't 100% buy into their romance. I didn't feel any chemistry between them at all. That fell really flat. There was some really good surprise twists, turns and betrayals that I didn't see coming, which I thought was really, really good. But overall, I gave it 3 out of 5. It was interesting, but it just didn't blow me away. And then I also read Professor Gargoyle, the first book in the Tales of Lovecraft Middle School. I absolutely loved this middle grade book. I read it in just one evening. It was the perfect middle grade read. It was so fun. It's made me want to have a 2-headed pet rat, because it's just so cute. Just look, it's just adorable. Highly, highly recommend this for fans of middle grade, or even if you've not really read middle grade but you've been considering it, I would say this is a great one to start with. I absolutely loved this. I also read Fallen Too Far by Abby Glines. This is my first Abby Glines book. I know she's an immensely popular new adult author, and I absolutely loved this. I just ploughed through it. I couldn't put it down. The end was absolutely evil. I couldn't believe it. This is a really sweet one, but it's hard to explain, but it's just so good. So good. If you like your contemporaries, if you like your new adults, or even if you like young adult, this would be a really, really good book. I I can't rave about it enough. I'm like obsessing over it. It's become one of my new favourites, and I loved it so much. I did give it 4.5 out of 5, so it didn't get like full marks, but it's because it had like one of my pet peeves in it was repeated 2 or 3 times, and it just like took the shine off of it a little bit. But I loved Blair. She's a really sweet character, even though she's innocent and naive. She's still really strong, and especially at the end, she really does stand up for what she knows is right. And I loved that about her. Rush is like your typical bad boy player, but there is another side to him that is really sweet, and definitely recommend this. I loved that so much that I delved straight into the second book, which is Never Too Far, and I put that on my Kindle. I downloaded it. Like I said, the end of Fallen Too Far just left me heartbroken. I couldn't leave it like that. My soul was destroyed. I needed to go like move on straight away. What I missed in Fallen Too Far was that we didn't have Rush's point of view. There were so many parts of the book that I thought I'd love to know what he's thinking now. Why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? And I really wanted his point of view. Well, in Never Too Far, it's told in alternating chapters, so we get both their points of view, which I loved. It added so much more to the story, and I just fell in love with both characters even more. I can't say too much about it because it would spoil book 1 and book 2, but loved it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 because it was just as good as the first book, but I felt the ending, everything was perfect, but then I felt the ending sort of came out of nowhere and it was just too sudden. I wanted a much better ending. And I know that we're going to see more of Rush and Blair. I know the next story in this series is about sort of like a side character, and then I think we get more Rush and Blair like in with that, and I think they may get another book later on. But I really hope we do see more of them because I love them, and if you love your new adult or you wanted to try new adult, definitely check these out. I wanted to read these before I read the Vincent Boys series of hers because that's got so much hype. I thought I would read another series of hers first, and definitely didn't regret it, loved it. So now on to more books that I read on my Kindle. I read Wait For You by Jaylin. This is Jennifer L. Armentrout writing as Jaylin, and this book had a lot of hype around it, around its release day. I actually did download it on its release day, and I read it quite early on in March. It's a new adult novel. As you've seen, like there'll probably be a lot of new adult novels in my wrap-ups from now on. Really, really love this one. It's probably the favourite new adult I've read. It's quite hard now to say because I've read Abby Glines and some other authors as well. But when I read this, it was definitely, without a doubt, my favourite. There was no competition at all. It was my favourite. Avery has moved a long way away from home to get away from her parents, and basically people were bullying her over this event that happened in her past 4 years ago, and so she's moved to start afresh really and get over it. We don't know straight away what that was. We get clues throughout, and then towards the end our suspicions are confirmed, and I really like that it wasn't dumped on us at the start. We sort of learned about it throughout. I thought that was really, really good. And while she's there, she meets Cam, and he's sort of really cheeky, fun, sarcastic, witty like guy. And they sort of become friends first, and it's so sweet. Their relationship is just so incredibly sweet. I absolutely loved this book. Highly recommend it. I think I gave it 5 out of 5. Let's double check. Yes, I did. I gave it 5 out of 5. Loved everything about it. I loved that their romance wasn't easy but he never, like, sometimes you just wanted to slap Avery. She's gone through a lot, but sometimes you just think, why are you doing that? But Cam sort of always sticks with her and sort of makes her come through it, and it's so incredibly sweet. I highly recommend it. It also does tackle some important issues, but it handles them so well. You can't help but admire Jaylin or Jennifer Armentrout. It was amazing. The next book I read was Always on My Mind by Bella Andre. This is book 8 in Bella Andre's Sullivan series. Basically, each book is about a different member of the Sullivan family finding love. I really love this adult contemporary series. The characters are just so lovable. They're just so sweet. I basically read them in a day to a couple of days. They're just really great reads. I just love them. If I feel myself heading towards a reading slump, then they're the perfect read. I was sent this for review because I was part of the Sullivans sort of major book tour back in January. So when this was coming out, they asked me if I wanted to review it, and I said I just jumped on it because I love the series so much. This is basically Laurie Sullivan. She's basically just got out of a really bad relationship. She found out her boyfriend was cheating on her, so she basically wants to get as far away as possible, and she ends up volunteering to be a farmhand on Grayson's farm, and he's a bit gruff and he's grieving, and really they shouldn't work, but they do, and it was just so incredibly sweet. Loved it. Wasn't my favourite of the Sullivan series, I have to say, but I still gave it 4.5 out of 5. I just preferred some of the others in the series more. Then I also read By Light of the Moon by Layla Blake. I read this one basically because Layla contacted me and asked me if I would be part of the blog tour for it, and I said yes. So my blog post will be going up on the 7th of April. It's basically kind of a historical fantasy romance read. There were parts I really liked about it, but for the most part it was slow to get into. The beginning was extremely repetitive. Our main character, who I can't even remember the name of, I'm sorry, she feels too confined inside. It's like she goes like crazy, so she has to wander around the castle sort of grounds outside at night, and she's just feeling confined, and then her family are trying to marry her off, and then some sort of paranormal creature is sort of hired as her bodyguard, and they fall in love kind of thing. It just was very slow to get going. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5. It was okay, but there was a lot wrong with it for me personally. And the last book that I read was Drowning in You by Rebecca Berto. This is another new adult novel. I was very kindly sent it for review from Rebecca. My expectations of this book may have been too high, and that's why I didn't enjoy it as much as I think I wanted to. I did enjoy that it was set in Australia. Most young adult or new adult contemporaries are set in the US, so it was very refreshing to have one set in Australia because Rebecca herself is Australian. But I found there was too much going on. Like, it just seemed like the author had tried to tackle too many plot lines at once. You have Charlie, our female protagonist. Her mother died in a ski lift accident. Her father is in hospital and he's basically going to die because of it. You have her feelings for Dexter. She's always been attracted to him, but he was the one operating the ski lift, so you have her sort of push and pull attraction to him. You have then Dex himself, his guilt over it. You have his family life issues. You have his diabetes. I feel like half the storylines that there were, because there are more than I've just said, they didn't need to be there. There was too much. It needed to be pulled back, and what was there needed to be executed fully. Because in the end, I found myself not connecting to the characters because too much was happening. 1 minute they're one personality, the next they're another. Charlie's best friend, she's only in it a couple of times. She didn't seem to have any purpose other than to make it look like Charlie had friends. There was a love triangle, almost love triangle going on. They clearly wanted to be together, but they kept pulling back, and then they would like be close together again, pull back, and in the end that was just so repetitive. In the end, I didn't care whether they got together or not because it was just too drawn out. So in the end, I ended up giving this sort of between half marks to 3 out of 5. There were some aspects of it that were really good, but others were just, there was just too much. It was too drawn out, and it just ended up not being as good as other new adult novels that I've read. So that's everything that I read in March. I'm so sorry that it's such a long video. Also to let you know, I had sort of a blog interview with Marissa Meyer go up in March. So if you guys would like to check that out, I will link that below, as well as all the blog reviews that went up on my blog in March. So if you want to check out any of those, just check them out down below. And thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys soon. Happy reading.